Morning, dear students. I'm your history teacher, Teacher Sanju, and I'm going to teach you history for this academic year. The chapter we are going to study today is early trade activities. Now, what are we going to learn in this chapter? There are different objectives. The first is trade in ancient and medieval ages. Second, causes of geographical discovery. Then we have major discoveries, and lastly we have the effects of geographical discoveries. Now we'll take the first topic, that is trade in ancient and medieval ages. Students, what is trade? Trade is considered to be as ancient as mankind. It started from the time men existed. And why do people trade? Why do you think people trade? People trade to exchange what they have in abundance for what they could not produce. For example, if you have grown a lot of rice and it's, there's a lot of rice, fine, and you want something else in exchange of rice, you want wheat. So you exchange it. You give it to someone, you give rice to someone, and then you take wheat. Now wheat is what you could not produce. So basically you are exchanging rice which you have in abundance, and you get wheat which you could not produce. Trading relations had existed since the days of the ancient Greek and Roman civilizations. Exchanging objects in absence of money is also known as barter system. Now in the earlier times people did not have money. Okay, they were not that rich. So what people would do, they would exchange things, different objects, and this exchanging of objects in absence of money is known as barter system. Now how do we come to know that there was trading? Okay, there are many proofs, evidence of the trading activities between East and West have been proved by the Roman coins which have been found in the excavation. Now how do we come to know there was trading in a particular country? Because, as I was saying, that these Roman coins, they were been found in different countries when the excavation was done. What is excavation? Excavation meaning digging of the earth. And these Roman coins were found even in India. Students, this is the picture of the Roman coins which have been found in the excavation. We also have the picture of the Indian coins, the ancient Indian coins. Trade from Mesopotamia to Indus River Valley. The information of the trade between India and Mesopotamia had been recorded even as early as the Indus Valley civilization in India. What does this mean? Even before Indus Valley civilization could come to India, there was trading between India and the Mesopotamia. In the medieval ages, Mediterranean and the Baltic seas were used as commercial highways. Now these two seas, okay, they were used as commercial highways. Commercial highways meaning what? Business. The routes, okay, routes for the commercial highways. Next, we have countries like Genoa and Venice were important commercial cities. It was at this place that the merchants from Europe and Asia met to exchange their goods. And what exactly used to happen over here? Countries like Genoa and Venice, they were the bustling cities for commercial centers. Okay, now it was at this place that the merchants who would travel from Europe and Asia, they would meet at this place and they would exchange their goods. Student, we also have the Silk Route. Now the Silk Route was one of the major routes used by the Arab merchants. Now why was it used by the Arab merchants? To carry out their trading activities with the Far East countries like China, and the trade routes of the ancient and medieval ages were land routes which passed through the various countries. In In the 15th century, these routes were used by the traders who earned huge profits by selling goods from one country to another. The European demand for goods from the east continued to increase, and this made the commercial class the richest class in the society. Now, what used to happen in the 15th century? These routes were used by the traders, and when these routes were being used by the traders, they would take the things, whatever they wanted to trade, and they would earn a huge profit by selling the goods from one country to another. For example, maybe India and China. Okay, so they would exchange the goods from India to China, and they would get huge profits. Further on, what happened? The European demand for goods from the east continued to increase. So the Europeans started demanding for goods. Okay, and the increase, and this made the commercial class, that is the business class, the richest class in the society. But these trading activities received a setback due to the development in the international politics during the 14th and the 15th centuries, which necessitated the need to discover the new trade route which would be safer, more convenient, and not under the control of any country. Now, no matter they discovered new routes, okay, or maybe the commercial class became the richest class in the society, but there was a setback in the development of this international politics during the 14th and the 15th century. Now, it was necessary, okay, to discover a new route which would be safer, more convenient, and not under the control of any country. Initially, the routes, they were not safe. Maybe, what to say, maybe some robbers would attack them, or maybe harsh weather, and so on. So there was a need to discover new routes which would be safer and more convenient. The period between 15th and the 17th century led to the age of geographical discoveries. Now, why do we say that the period between the 15th and the 17th century led to the age of geographical discovery? Because it is at this point that the Europeans had explored the continents of Asia and Africa, and they discovered America. Here you can see exactly the Europeans had explored the continents of Asia, okay, and Africa, and they discovered America. Students, this is the map of America. The second subtopic, what we are going to learn today, is the causes of geographical discoveries. Now, what were the limitations or the disadvantages of the land routes? Now, as I have told you in the earlier subtopic, we have said that it was necessary to there was a need to discover new trade routes which would be safer, more convenient. But there were some disadvantages also to this land routes. Now let's see what were they. Traveling by land routes was time consuming. It would take a very long time. It took months together to travel from one place to another. Land routes were full of risk because the traders always faced the danger of being attacked by the robbers. Third, there were no proper lodging facilities for the traders during the night time. Lodging meaning what? To stay. Where would they stay at night? No proper facilities, lodging facilities. It was not possible to carry perishable goods for a long time. Perishable meaning what? Food which could get spoiled. Since the land routes passed through the countries, there was a danger of traders being stopped by the rulers. Now we know in every country there would be a ruler, and the land routes would pass through different countries. So there was a danger of the trader being stopped by the ruler. Now these were the limitations of the land routes. Next is knowledge of wealth of the eastern countries. Now the Europeans had the information of the wealth and the riches of the eastern countries either through the records of the earlier traders or by witnessing the profits earned by the traders through their trading activities of goods sold at high prices. Now how did the Europeans knew that the riches of the eastern countries? Because they had heard from the earlier traders, Okay, maybe they had written somewhere, there were some records, or maybe they had witnessed the profits earned by the traders. So Marco Polo's visited Kublai Khan in China in the 13th century and brought precious stones from there, which created a desire in the minds of traders to accumulate wealth for which they were ready to take any risk. Okay, there was a trader by name Marco Polo. He visited China in the 13th century, and from China he bought precious stones. Okay, and this created a desire in the minds of other traders to gather wealth, and they were ready to undertake any type of risk. Human beings are never satisfied with what they have, they need more and more. So also these traders had an urge to get those precious stones from China. Goods like Chinese silk, Indian cotton, and precious stones, perfumes, and other items like gum, dyes, fragrant wood, etc., were always in demand in the European markets. The ever-increasing demands for these goods in the European society encouraged merchants to find new sea routes. Now, these demands were going on increasing. The traders wanted the Chinese silk, the Indian cotton, precious stones, perfumes, and other items like gums, dyes, fragrant wood. So these demands, created or encouraged the European merchants to find new routes to the east so that they could bring these luxury items and make enormous profits, lot of profit, so that they could bring these items, and make lot of profit. Then we have the growth of geographical knowledge. Growth of geographical knowledge also inspired the explorers to undertake geographical explorations and discoveries. A number of books were published in the 15th century which provided information about the trade routes between the Far East and the West and improved the geographical knowledge of the Europeans. Now there were a number of books which were published, and these books would give information about the trade routes between the between the Far East and West, which improved and inspired the explorers to undertake geographical exploration. Now some of the books were Geography, written by Ptolemy. This one was a writer, and he had written a book by name Geography. There was another handbook, a merchant's handbook by Florentine. These books provided valuable information and were a guide to explorers when they undertook voyages. Now there were two books which were published. One was by Ptolemy, the name of the book was Geography, and another handbook, that is a merchant's handbook, that was written by Florentine. Now these books provided valuable information and were a guide to the explorers when they took voyages. Next we have is the patronage from the European monarchs. The traders during this period had secured the patronage from the European rulers to undertake voyages to unknown lands because they considered it as an opportunity to make investment which would earn them high returns in terms of money and land. Now these European traders, students, they wanted to explore because they thought if they go on exploring, they would get more money. Fine, they could invest and would earn high returns in terms of money and land. Secondly, by supporting the explorers, they could expand their empires by bringing the new areas under their political supremacy. So these monarchs, they were very greedy. Understood? So what they thought, if they support the explorers, they could expand their empires, bringing new areas under their supremacy, under their political kingdom. Besides this, they knew that they would be able to earn more wealth to the trading activities in East. Now, as we all know, if there is trading, then there is a lot of profit. So also the monarchs, in the earlier times, they knew that they would be able to earn more wealth to trading activities in the East. Thus, they provided all kinds of financial and non-financial support to the explorers and the traders. Understood? Next we have is this is what I've already told you. By supporting the explorers, they could expand their empires by bringing new areas under the political supremacy. They knew that they would earn more wealth through trading activities in the East. Thus, they provided financial and non-financial support to the traders. Now we have the desire to spread Christianity. The discovery of the new lands was looked upon by Christian missionaries as an opportunity to spread their religion. These missionaries were often supported by the European traders and merchants who were also keen to exploit the unexplored lands. Availability of navigational aids. Students, we can see two pictures over here. The first speaks about the marine compass, which shows us the direction. This is about the compass. It has already been taught to you in 6th standard. And then we have is astrolabe. Okay, it is just like a compass. The explorers had an access to a number of navigational aids like the marine compass, the astrolabe, geographical maps, and knowledge of shipbuilding. Okay, now these explorers, they had access to a number of navigational aids like the marine compass. Then we have the astrolabe, the geographical maps, and the knowledge of shipbuilding. Of all, the marine compass was most useful as it provided the navigator an idea about the direction in which they were sailing. Now, this marine compass was very useful because it provided the navigator an idea about the direction in which he was sailing or in which he wanted to go. Capture of the city of Constantinople. Now, Constantinople was the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire, and Europe had enjoyed a flourishing trade and commerce with Asia through Constantinople. Now, what happened in 1453? In 1453, Constantinople fell into the hands of the Ottoman Turks, and the European trade with the East disrupted because the Turkish rulers did not allow the Europeans to carry out their trade to this route. But since there was a constant demand for the Eastern goods, they could not stop their trading activities, and so they were compelled to find out new routes so that their trade could continue. So what happened over here? The Turkish rulers did not allow the Europeans to carry out their trade through this route, to their route. So the Europeans were forced to find another route so that their trade could continue. Over here you can see in this picture that in 1453 Constantinople fell into the hands of the Ottoman Turks, and the Europe trade with the East disrupted because the Turkish did not allow the Europeans to carry out their trade to this route. Now, major discoveries. In this subtopic we will learn about the major discoveries, which countries were discovered, and so on. The two countries who had taken in lead in discovering the New World during the 15th century were Portugal and Spain. Okay, England, France, and other European countries had entered later when they witnessed the profitability of the geographical discoveries. When they came to know that there is a lot of profit, after discovering this lens, that's the time Europe, then we have England, France, and other European countries. That's later they entered. First is Portugal. Now, Portugal was the first European country to utilize the opportunity of discovery. The three main aims were God, glory, and gold. Now, what were the three main aims of Portugal? God, glory, and gold. The Portuguese traders and navigators were blessed to have Prince Henry. Okay, now these Portuguese traders and navigators were blessed to have Prince Henry as their ruler during the 15th century. What did Prince Henry do? He set up a school for navigators, collected the services of the map makers and the ship designers, and did everything to help the expedition, and therefore he had earned the title of Henry the Navigator. Now, why were these people happy? The Portuguese happy? Why were they saying that they were blessed to have Prince Henry? Because he had set up a school for the navigators. He collected the services of the map makers and the ship designers and did everything to help his expeditions. And because of that, and therefore, he earned the title of Henry the Navigator. Next we have is Bartholomew Dias. In 1488, Bartholomew Dias reached the southern tip of Africa, which is called the Cape of Storms. Now, why did he say Cape of Storms? Because he was caught in the storms of the sea. Cape of Storms was later named as Cape of Good Hope. Why? Because it provided hope to the navigators to travel further. Here it's clearly mentioned Cape of Storm was later named Cape of Good Hope as it provided hope to the navigators to travel further. Now, who do we see in this picture? Yes, students, it is Vasco da Gama. Now, Vasco da Gama used route Cape of Good Hope and reached the western coast of India and landed at Calicut on 17th May 1498. He then secured trading concessions from the ruler of Calicut. And what did he take when he was going from Calicut? He took spices, then precious stones, which repaid 60 times of the cost of the expedition. Fine? Okay, students, now let's study about Spain. That is the second country which had taken the lead to discover the New World during the 15th century. Spanish explorations began during the rule of King Ferdinand and Queen Isabel. We can see King Ferdinand and Queen Isabel. So the Spanish explorations began during the rule of King Ferdinand and Queen Isabel. Now here we can see another picture and Christopher Columbus is in the picture. Okay. So in 1492, Christopher Columbus was provided with 3 ships by King Ferdinand and Queen Isabel. And why did they provide him 3 ships? To explore, for exploration. On 12th October 1492, he landed at Bahamas, a place which he mistook for India. He is also credited for the discovery of America. America was named so after American Vespucci. America was named after American Vespucci, who had explored the interior regions of this continent. We have another explorer, and he is Ferdinand Magellan, and he had proved that the earth is round by circumnavigating it. In 1520, he went round South America across the Pacific, visited the Philippine Island, and reached Spain via the Cape of Good Hope. Now, why did he say that the earth is round? Because he went round and round these countries, South America, then across the Pacific, visited the Philippine Island, and reached Spain via the Cape of Good Hope. Then we have John Cabot. He landed on Cape of Breton Island, which is in Canada, and he also established the English claim to the eastern coast of North America. France started its process of exploration in 16th century under the rule of King Francis I. When they tried to set up their colony in the Northern America, they came into conflict with England, and this was the beginning of the conflicts. Now, what happened over here? When France tried to set up their colony in Northern America, they came into conflict. They started fighting with England, and this was the beginning of the conflicts between the European countries for possession of the colonies. They wanted more and more colonies, and because of that, there were fight between the France and the European countries. The last subtopic, that is effects of geographical discovery. The discovery of the Atlantic Ocean provided a new route to the east, and soon it became the chief highway of commerce. Now, students, which were the highways first? Commercial highways: Mediterranean Sea and the Baltic Seas. Okay, and the traders would come to Genoa and Venice because they were the commercial cities. But what happened later on? The discovery of Atlantic Ocean provided a new sea route to the east, and soon it became the chief highway of commerce. The Baltic and the Mediterranean Sea, which were the commercial highways, lost their importance now. I already told you that Baltic and the Mediterranean Seas, they were the commercial highways before, Now, these Baltic and the Mediterranean seas, after the discovery of the Atlantic Ocean, they lost their importance. This, in turn, led to rise of a number of new commercial centers like London, Lisbon, and Amsterdam. Okay, so when Mediterranean and Baltic, seas, they lost their importance. What happened? On the other hand, this gave rise to a number of new commercial centers like London, Lisbon, and Amsterdam. It also led to the emergence of absolute monarchies in Europe. The middle class became important due to the expansion of the commerce. Now, this middle class, they needed the support of the rulers for their protection, and so they provided finances to the rulers to fight against the feudal nobles. This helped the monarchs in most part of the Europe to establish their political supremacy. Next, the Western powers considered themselves to be superior to the natives of Asia and Africa, and they took themselves the responsibility of civilizing the uncivilized population of the world, which they termed the white man's burden. The geographical discoveries gave rise to colonialism and imperialism. After the discovery of new territories, a large number of Europeans immigrated to these territories and established their own colonies. They established political control over the territories and began ruling them. These colonies were established by the Portuguese, the Dutch, and the French and the English in different parts of Asia, Africa, and America. Often these colonial powers imposed restrictions on these colonies not to trade with other foreign countries and try to exploit their economies. So what this Dutch, Portuguese, French, and English, what they said, that the people who were trading, they could not trade with other foreign countries, and they tried to exploit their economy. The Europeans began to import spices, Indian textile, Persian carpets, etc. from the East in large quantities. The enormous growth in the commercial activities led to the creation of credit institutions, commercial banks, and other instruments. They lowered the taxes on their own industry but increased it in the colonies. The imperialist countries also passed a navigational act to develop the shipping industry, and every effort was made to extract maximum trade concession from the colonies. They started taking money, concession from the colonies. The colonial trade was exploitative and one-sided, which led to political, cultural, and economic exploitation of the colonies. The geographical discoveries led to the establishment of the Columbian system of exchange. Now, what was the Columbian system of exchange? It was a system named after Columbus, according to which the plants, animals, and ideas of Europe and the New World were exchanged with one another. The ideas were exchanged, they were being told to the other country. Thus the Europeans bought cattle, then horses and ships to the New World. From the New World, the Europeans received tobacco, silk, spices, and precious stones. From the New World, what they bought? They bought cattle, horses, and ship. And what did the European receive from the New World? They received tobacco, silk, spices, and precious stones. This is the geographical discovery. Thus the geographical discoveries had initiated a new beginning in the world history. It brought the world closer with the interaction among people from different countries, which led to the emergence of modern world. Students, you must have seen the difference between the earlier world and now. There's a vast difference, and this world is the modern world. And because of this geographical discoveries, okay, these geographical discoveries, it brought the world closer with interaction among the people from different countries. People started interacting with each other. They started sharing their ideas, their views. Okay, and because of this everything, all of this, okay, all this led to the emergence of modern world. Thank you, students. I hope you understood what has been taught to you. The questions will be followed later.